Hey, welcome back to the First Generation Millionaires podcast. I am your host, Rebecca Barr, and I am so excited to record this episode today where I will be sharing with you one of the fundamental steps that needs to happen as a first generation founder, which is healing your receiving wound and how to do that, and how this actually came up for me myself this week. And that the work when it comes to transforming your relationship with money is never truly done. There will just be a new evolution and a new edge that you need to work through or heal in order to move to your next level. So thank you so much. Obviously, please make sure that if you love this episode and if anything resonates for you, that you either like, comment, and subscribe, or share with a fellow business bestie that you know is also walking the same path and taking the same journey as you right now in terms of, doing the work, healing their money wounds, trying to become more visible, having more impact, and making more income in 2025. Or you actually come and join me inside my First Generation Academy, where I can support you at a more practical level to over the next 12 months to really dive much deeper into the concepts that I'm going to be sharing with you today. But otherwise, if you are just here for the episode today, thank you so much for joining me. I truly am so grateful to be able to lean into this work and share this message. So first of all, what is the receiving wound? How is that currently sabotaging your sales in your business? So the receiving wound for me I think it is when your nervous system, just to kind of make it as easy as possible, is when your nervous system doesn't allow you to receive because it doesn't deem that what you want is safe for you to receive. So you're having a very visceral response that is essentially keeping you stuck at your current income level, because whatever you want, for some reason, and this usually comes up based on experiences that have happened during your early childhood, it believes that what you want to receive, i.e. more clients, more impact, more visibility, is either not safe for you to receive, you don't necessarily deserve to receive it, or what you want is not sustainable. And I've seen this a lot, having been in business for 10 years now, having seen a lot of people, particularly in the coaching space or in those kind of service delivery spaces, where people start with a lot of energy and enthusiasm, they make a lot of money very quickly, but then all of a sudden either they start to lose their passion, things start to plateau, or they don't seem to convert in the same way, and they can't keep it going. And typically it's because of this receiving wound that, they've experienced some level of happiness or success, but for some reason, to either sustain it or get to the next level, everything about them is just kind of repelling it because it doesn't feel like it's safe. So let me know if you kind of resonate with any of these symptoms. And typically, a lot of the time when I speak to people and I say, like, would you want more money? They're like, of course I do. Of course I want more money. Of course I want more clients. Of course I want to be of more service. Of course I want to make more of an impact. But what they don't realize is how you do one thing in life is how you do everything. So when I say to them, interesting. So what about if I were to pay you a compliment right now and say, oh my God, you look amazing. That outfit is beautiful. What would you do? And they'd be like, well, what, this? And they would automatically go into deflection mode. They would start to deflect that compliment. They wouldn't be able to fully receive that praise. And definitely for me, I've had this over the years where and here's the thing, if I'm saying anything that comes up for you, it's just an opportunity for growth, not judgment. Growth, not judgment. So I've had this a lot of times where I feel like I've done the work, I'm fully aligned, and yet these little things will come up and I'm like, interesting, I'm really struggling to receive that right now, like that's interesting to me. So at events I've had women that are like, oh my God, you've literally changed my life, and I've sat there and thought, okay, you're so welcome, that's amazing, this is what I live for, da 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 da. And then I'm like, wow, there is no part of me that is really absorbing that information because I just can't receive it. And I'm like, interesting, I need to go away and journal on that. What part of me believes that I don't have the capability or the capacity to actually truly change somebody's lives? Now, there's part of me that's like, obviously that is so detached from my ego. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cough since I've been re-recording these episodes. And when you watch my podcast, there's always going to be a tangent or a side note or a backstory. So I was talking about this in my academy call this week, that since I have committed after having the baby to becoming more visible, to re-record it, starting to get out there more with my podcast, my throat chakra has literally just closed up. I have had the worst cold. I've had a chest infection, like a very visceral response, as I'm talking about, to being seen more, to having more to say. I think it's no coincidence also that my messaging has changed a little bit more and been more refined, that I am really struggling. Sorry. Maybe I can edit that out. But equally, that's part of my truth. That's part of me showing up and being authentic, isn't it? This is a very real first generation response. I have immediately got sick, and it just kind of reconfirms what I'm saying today. Maybe that's why I felt called to record this episode specifically. Um, but yes, one of the symptoms is deflecting compliments and really receiving those kind words and testimonials when you receive them from your clients. Another one is undercharging because you want to be liked and you don't want people to feel like you are only doing it for the money. You want to be quote unquote accessible to everybody. You want to really come from a place of servitude, but where it's ultimately not actually sustainable for you to do that. I definitely did this at the beginning, especially because I had other business interests. I didn't necessarily need the money. Oh my God, I'm just thinking now, so many examples come up for me this week. And again, it was my birthday this week. So again, lots of eyes on me, lots of fuss around me. I go all out for my kids' birthdays, and we have lots of different celebrations. We'll have like a family celebration, we'll have a wider family celebration, we have a friends celebration. On the day there's lots of decorations, because obviously for me, giving is such a joyful act for me, but it is just a symptom as well of me being very much in my wounded masculine, where when I was a child, I wanted to, there was nobody taking care of me, so I've never really seen what that looks like. But also when I committed to becoming a parent, I always default to the martyr mum who does everything in servitude for their kids, because that's one of my love languages, but also a way that I measure my success as a parent is how much I'm doing for my kids. Obviously, that's not healthy because I don't want them to be martyr parents that don't carve out any time or anything for themselves. But also where I had a very emotionally vulnerable parent and an absent parent, and I learned to, as a coping mechanism, to always make everything about everybody else. So again, this is just like so much wounding that comes up for me, but presents itself in different ways. So equally, always being the new girl. One way to make friends is to make everything about the other person, like ask them the questions, be overly invested in what's going on in their lives right now. Never ask for anything for yourself. That's how I made friends very quickly. And as much as, yes, I'm a good person, I love to do those things, I have to kind of check myself if it borders into wounded masculine, because a masculine structure is all about giving out to other people, protecting other people. I've always been the champion because I don't want anyone to suffer in the ways that I did as a child. So that's where it can sometimes become very disempowering when you are overly giving and you're not receiving. Life is about ebb and flow. I say this a lot in my podcast episode, in my teachings, and it's about mastering the art of receiving, where it feels safe and okay for you to do that. Recognizing that everybody wins when you do. So undercharging, like I say, is absolutely a symptom. I did that very much at the beginning because I just wanted to make sure everybody else was okay. Not really allowing myself to be okay, or prioritizing my family and what works for us and our structure and our routines. And especially when I was in the done for you capacity, where, I would never take half terms off. I would always be available every night, every day. Like literally, if a client worked with me, they got my heart, soul, and everything. And for me to start to rein that back in and start to assert boundaries and start to not be as accessible and not be as available was like the first step in me not only ensuring that my business was sustainable and that I was okay, but also allowing me to serve at a higher level, because it meant that I could charge more premium prices, not necessarily deliver more, but it then attract more empowering clients that are happy to kind of figure things out for themselves. I was stopped attracting wounded clients that needed me to handhold them through every process, which you're in that kind of savior complex. So just hopefully some of this will come up for you. You can also be in like the pushing energy. You can be in constantly giving out to others, as I've mentioned, attracting clients but never really converting because they don't see you as that authority. They see you as like, yes, she's inspirational. And I used to get that all the time. Wow, your journey is amazing. You're so inspirational. Your clients are so lucky. But then people wouldn't actually invest. part of that is being in my wounded and feminine masculine energy, giving too much on the front end didn't give people a reason to actually invest and lean in. And again, I was thinking like, well, it's just going to pay itself back in like karma. And I believe in that, definitely. But also, you deny your clients the opportunity to commit, to invest in their own personal growth by giving everything away on the front end. There's no reason for them to kind of come into your programs, but we know that those people that pay attention, and when they are in your programs and committed to do the work and get the results, that's when they become empowered. That's when they start to see that growth for themselves. um, Equally, there might be something coming up for you where you are hitting new levels, but as I said earlier, you're not able to sustain it, or you are sabotaging it. So again, I've seen people that have these incredible launches, where I just had this week actually with a client in my mastermind, where she's just had an incredible win. She's had some really high profile press, and she has gained 600 new leads for her business, but she hadn't really considered how she was going to follow up with those people, because she's in her wounded feminine, where she's like, I just want to inspire, I just want to share, but there's no masculine structure there to actually manage the back end and enable those people to move further on in that journey with her. So that's where me as the mentor, I very much ebb and flow depending on the client. So in my mastermind community, this is very much women that are, hitting those new levels, but it's like, how do we keep the party going? How do we take it to the next level? How do we feel safe? How do we feel good? I know how to make money, but how do I, do it with more ease? How do I sustain it more? And that's where I need to ebb and flow from being a feminine leader to a masculine leader, where I am helping them with both ends of the spectrum, so that they get to really tap in and create something truly aligned, but they also get to ensure that they're not leaving money on the table. That's why you always want a manifesting generator on your team also, because we can see all the moving parts of all the businesses and all the opportunities and all the things. So for me, again, I'm just thinking actually, as I'm talking about this as well, some real examples of what's come up for me this week with my birthday. So first of all, my daughter and I went shopping. She's homeschooled now, so we can do that in the week, and it was lovely. And she wanted to buy me a smoothie for my birthday. And oh my God, did I really struggle to receive it, because they're like, what, £5? That's a whole week's pocket money for her. And I knew that she also had saved her pocket money and was planning to buy me something also as a gift. And I was like, no, like, this is too much. Don't worry about it, darling. Let me buy you a smoothie. Like, this is my treat. I want to take you out and do nice things. We've got this time together. Like, let's make the most of it. And she was really insistent, and almost like I was insulting her by not taking the smoothie. And she's like, Mum, I've saved my pocket money. Let me give you something nice. You're always doing nice things for us. And I had to sit there and I obviously take it, which was amazing. Even though it was like 2 floors up, and I had the push chair, and it was almost like a bit of a like, I don't know what the word was, but it was a bit of a schlep to get up, the waiting for the lift, getting the baby up there, having the smoothie, then trying to hold this while. And I was like, wow, this is so ungrateful. And I was like, this is me trying to deflect because I don't want to receive. And I'm putting all these barriers in my way as to why I can't receive a smoothie, because ultimately I don't want to take her money, because that's the kind of thing that used to happen to me all the time, where I had a bit of an inheritance when my dad passed, and my mum and my stepdad were constantly dipping into it, to the point where the part where I was actually supposed to receive that money at 18, there was nothing left. And so for me, the act of taking money from your children is a real trigger for me. It brings up so much trauma. And I talk about in my book where I had a school trip that I desperately wanted to go on. It was a ski trip. I've never to this day skied. And it felt like having a glimpse of the other half, like how the other half live. And it felt really exciting, and it really would have been amazing. And I paid for the ski trip 2 times, and I never actually went. My stepdad kept making me take the money out of my post office account, as it was back in the day, on the premise that I would take the cash out, give it to him to pay in his bank. He would give me a check, because taking the cash to a school wasn't safe. And again, a bit narcissistic, like enabling that fear and instilling that fear into me that other people will take your money, when actually it's the people that are closest to you that hurt you far more than the world at large, and strangers on the internet and all the things, and strangers out in the public typically. And what happened was every time I went to take that check in, he would take it off me and say, oh, you can't cash it because something's come up, a bill's taken it. And ultimately, I never ended up going. I paid for that trip, I think 2 or 3 times, never actually went. So that's why I really didn't want to take her money, but I knew that I had to, because not only am I, as her mum, modeling what it looks like to be, in your feminine and receiving, I also know the repercussions of that ripple effect throughout the universe, that if I'm denying things and receiving, that will absolutely impact me in my business. But also, this is an opportunity for growth and healing. So I need to receive that, see how much joy it brings her, and know that it's safe for me to do that. Another example this week that came up for me was on my birthday, actual birthday. I was walking into town and I found £60 on the floor. Now, that is quite a literal gift from the universe to say, it's your birthday, go do something nice. But straight away, because of some of the wounds that are still there for me to heal, as they will always be, came up and said, leave it there. Somebody might want to come back for it. So there might be somebody that needs it more than you. And also felt a bit guilty, a bit shameful about picking it up, felt a bit embarrassed. And I literally walked past it, and then I came back. I came back because I caught myself in the moment. I was like, no, this is a literal gift from the universe. Again, what is the ripple effect of doing that? It's okay for me to have that money, even if I already have money. I know that I'm going to do good things for it. And the first thing I did was save £10 of that money. I invested £10. So that's like paying my future self forwards, allowing that money to grow and thrive, because money is energy. It needs to move, it needs to expand. But then also paid it forwards. So I gave the lady that served us for our meal for my dinner £10 as a tip, and then also spent the rest with gratitude, and just allowed myself to fully receive and be thankful that I got to be the one that found that. Because what is meant to happen, we're meant to have that balance of feminine and masculine energy inside us, but also in our family dynamics, in our relationship dynamics, so that there is that ebb and flow, as I said, and the yin and the yang in your friendship groups. You always need to be giving and receiving, giving and receiving. Same with money, giving and receiving. It's energy, it needs to move. The feminine energy for me is all about receiving. And in your business, it's about being intuitive, collaborating, listening to the downloads, leading with your gut and your intuition, being open to receive things, but also open to receive, visibility, opportunities, collaborations, all of those things. And that's what ultimately makes you magnetic, being open to receive, and then your clients are drawn to you. And that energy of self-assurance and self-trust, that I know who I am, I know that I'm worthy, I know that I'm good at what I do, and they are just drawn to that energy like magnets. But what can happen if you have wounded feminine energy is that you can almost become very much passive. I've seen this with healers. I've seen this with women that are very much so in tuned to their feminine energy that they're almost like, I'm open to whatever the universe wants to give me, not really taking control of their own power to steer that ship and to create and manifest and collapse timelines and have any sort of sense of direction as to where you're going. So they become very self-sacrificing. They are overly giving. They don't want to charge their worth. They don't want to be doing anything innovative. They're very much leaning into what the collective, what their community says. This is why it is so important that you have community, whatever that looks like for you, but definitely in the business sense, especially as a first generation person, business founder, outside of your industry. Because I've seen this happen so many times where women kind of stay in line, toe the official messaging for their industry, and if they face rejection or judgment from other people, if they trigger them with their success, they immediately shrink and withdraw. And I've seen this happen so many times. But when you have a community that's outside of your industry, you can tap into them and say, this has come up, what do you think? Especially if you plan to disrupt or be a trailblazer in your industry. If you know that there's things that are going wrong. For me, and I think this comes from having a grounding outside of the coaching space and the mentorship space, the online marketing space, the money space, because I've always had a business foundation and a core solid sense of who I am outside of that. I've always been able to come in and just be very objective, be very authentic, be very me, because I've got no alliances. There's a lot of women and coaches otherwise that are like it's like this clique, this mean girl group, these alliances that mean that they are having to kind of all tag each other, all kind of be saying the same messaging as each other. They're all in each other's energy. They're in the same masterminds. They are at the same events. They're supporting each other's collaborations, which in one hand, on the face of it, looks beautiful, but on the other hand, is very manipulative. It's very coercive. It's very mean girl. So if you don't do what they say, then you will be ostracized. And I've had that definitely, where I was kind of embraced by certain communities when I invest in high ticket masterminds. And like, yay, everybody's supporting everybody, this is amazing, and going to retreats and doing the things. And then as soon as I started to realize, actually, God, get like, what is going on behind the scenes of these businesses and what they're saying, and how the different they are in person, and they're not people with integrity, and not really wanting to, speaking out a little bit or having an alternative view, you're immediately dropped and kind of left on the outsides and probably talked about negatively. And I've definitely had that feedback from clients that this person's, and I just don't care. I literally don't care. I know that there is that I'm sending those people love and compassion, that they have to act in those ways, but that can be what happens when you're in your wounded feminine. Again, overly looking for approval from others, not being authentic to who you are, waiting to be rescued, afraid of that rejection. And not truly building a business that's in alignment with you. You can also then, if you're at the masculine energy, it's all about structure, direction, protection, and execution on your goals. If you don't have that, or you're in your wounded masculine, it can look like controlling, being very rigid, doing what you know works and not allowing yourself to venture into new territories or doing anything else, where you are creating success but you're not enjoying it. So this is also where you can be very much in your hustle mode, in your doing mode, and get a lot of validation from being busy. You can also be doing things that you don't necessarily want to do, because you feel some mentor or some person, some guru told you that that's what it takes to create success. I've had this definitely before, where I had a mentor that I invested a lot of money into, I've mentioned it before, that told me to build my business through essentially spamming my audience, misleading people to get them onto what were essentially sales calls, but telling them they were just like an opportunity to get to know people. Now, first of all, I don't have time to sit and have hundreds of pointless calls that when I've got, 6 young kids at home, that potentially weren't going to go anywhere. But it also doesn't feel good to manipulate or mislead people to get onto those calls and then ultimately sell them. And I just knew that wouldn't serve me, that strategy, and being the DMs in the morning and the night and having spreadsheets to follow up on people. That is an overly masculine structure that doesn't feel good for me. I would rather trust that my audience are not idiots, and that if they want to work with me, they will. And if they feel the pull, they will. And if they are actively looking and empowered for a solution, they will realize in themselves that you can only get so much from free content, and that you need to invest in something that I'm delivering, that and with a community, and that they will do that essentially. Because I believe that we're not idiots, and that you don't need to manipulate or use NLP techniques to lean on people's pain points or overcome their objections. For me, that sounds like a really painful way to deliver a business, and it isn't in alignment with the kind of person that I am. I'll tell you anything you want to know for free, but I know for a fact that even if I gave you the best strategy in the world, you wouldn't execute it on it necessarily, for all of the reasons why I'm telling you, because you're in your wounded and your feminine and masculine energy, because things are going to come up for you along those ways, and you're going to have along that journey, you're going to have follow-on questions, because your beliefs are going to tell you, take you off track. You're going to have one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake. So actually, if you want support with that element, then come and join my communities and my mastermind. I can hold an arm around you for the next 12 months and we'll do it together. Therefore, I don't need to manipulate you into selling standalone programs. So that for me is what's come up. Hopefully something may have come up for you throughout this conversation, where you'll start to connect the dots and be like, interesting. Yes, that happens to me. Now I've got a better sense as to why, because what I would love from today is that you take away the following 3 takeaways, and that then, like I say, you either, to decide to invest in something, or you follow some simple steps to start that process and that journey for yourself. So, my takeaways today is that receiving is an energetic skill. It's not a mindset shift that needs to happen. It's about allowing your nervous system to regulate around the act and the art of receiving. And if you only do one thing today, it's starting to create radical awareness around where you are blocking yourself. And ultimately, what that will mean, what the ripple effect of that will mean if you continue in that avenue, in that thread or that theme. So, like I said, for me, that looked like walking past the money, stopping, and then going back to get it. It looked like starting to deflect the smoothie and then catching myself in the moment and then saying, no, actually, thank you so much, and being grateful and having, gratitude for it, and really allowing her to know that I appreciate her for that thing, and allowing myself to enjoy it and not get in the way of my own thing, which is I really wanted a smoothie. So that is kind of one takeaway. The next one is that true wealth comes from receiving and giving. This comes from when your feminine and your masculine energy are healed and acting as they were meant to. So, this is where your feminine energy is tapping into your intuition, your collaboration, your connection, your receiving, and your masculine is allowing you to create structure. It's allowing you to protect things that your intuition is telling you is not right, i.e., creating your own path in business. And it's creating that structure and um, uh, executing on the things that you say that you're going to do so that you can fully operate at your highest possible level. It's also about healing and knowing that is the third takeaway is about healing and knowing that truly is the first step that you need to take as a first generation business founder who wants to hit the big numbers. It's about gifting yourself the time and space to allow healing first, not rushing in with the masculine, thinking that it's this strategy or this strategy that's going to make you successful. It's also carving out time and space for you to become the next level version of you that can hold that next level of success, and understanding that journey has to walk hand in hand. There has to be space for both. And that's kind of my key takeaways, those 3 takeaways for you right now in listening to this episode. Let me know if anything's come up for you, what resonates, and obviously please feel welcome to come and join us inside the First Generation Millionaires Academy if you want to dive deeper into that work this year.